To begin our session on vital education, we cannot begin without first outlining what are the 4 layers of our being. Actually, there are 5, but I never speak about the 5th because that's a little higher to understand. And those layers of our being are the physical, vital, mental, psychic, and actually there is a spiritual one, but we never talk about it. Someday we will reach the level that we will also talk about the spiritual education. And an integral growth of personality involves a balanced growth of all these strata of our being. So, I mean, we cannot start straight away with vital. Let's just go into the physical, mental, psychic to a little extent, and then we'll elaborate on the vital education. Our physical body. Our physical body must be consciously trained from childhood. You know, the word conscious is very important. A child has to become conscious that I'm doing this so that my muscles are becoming stronger. This exercise is helping my skeletal system to become strong. I am doing this running so that my strength increases. So the strength, the skeletal system, the muscle system, suppleness, agility, speed, flexibility. Now tell me, teachers, what all are we doing in Jaipuria school to achieve all this? We are doing yoga. Yoga brings around flexibility. Sports, we are doing games. Not only that, our Jaipuria, self-defense classes. Our Jaipuria school teachers have been sent year after year, the physical education teachers, to Pondicherry to learn specific exercises for specific part of the children's bodies. And all those have been formed into a proper regime. All the teachers must know that. And that regime is being followed by our teachers, by our physical education teachers. And that regime has been designed in such a manner that in class 2, the child will do so many push-ups. Class 3, the push-ups, the numbers will increase because the strength increases. So it's a very well-designed regime that we are following in Jaipuria school so that our children actually consciously develop all these parts of their physical body, right? The word consciously is very important. I'll repeat that many times through the entire interaction with you. So this is regarding the physical body. Posture. We used to do posture analysis, but because of this construction and all, it has been taken apart. Now we have designed a proper room for posture analysis where there is place for the children to change clothes and change back again. And that room should be in a working state maybe in 2 months.
Health checkups for children once a year sometime.
Are we doing that in this
We are
one?
doing it, but it should be
Dental and eye.
checkups. That's
But a full body checkup for 4,300 students is impossible.
low students. For the growth.
For junior school?
Junior school, we're doing a lot of food and nutrition also part of this.
Excellent. This is all.
With lesson plans, we've integrated a lot of things like telling about the kind of food they should have, sleep. That's also an important aspect of physical.
Very important. Hygiene.
Sleep.
Have to be taught this highly in low classes. Health checkups. That's it.
They were taught to
That is also part of the
integrated with our plans and teachers are teaching us physical activities with our lessons also.
So once it's integrated into the lesson plan, then it doesn't drop by the wayside.
They have been integrated.
That is the most important thing to do, that we must integrate things about hygiene, about sleep, about food into our lesson plan, nutrition.
All that is done. Everything is done. Is that in the online classes also, we began, with sanitization of hands, how hand washing has to be done, brushing the teeth. Then the teachers made PPTs, videos, of what kind of food are we going to eat, and the teacher is also eating fruit right from PG. This is what
Very good.
has been done. And it's a matter of like, well, they have their
Excellent.
fruit tiffin,
That has been going on.
So
Huh?
that is also
Very good. Very important part of the food regime. Yeah. Nutrition. Very good. Excellent. Now, as far as mental education is concerned, I'm not elaborating on these because our topic today is vital education, right? But as far as mental education is concerned, our lesson plans are being redesigned. Every year, junior school lesson plans, Asha ma'am is making sure that they are again redesigned, again calibrated, recalibrated, because we've not reached the top. We always need to go on and on. Perfection is so far, but we need to keep recalibrating what we are doing. So they are being rewritten, and what we are trying to do more and more is include discussions and research. The component of research is very important for mental development, and that's what we are trying to do in our lesson plans. The old methodology of teaching in India has to give way to the new methodology. And in Jaipuria school, we are not going to leave a stone unturned to come out with the new methodology. Fortunately, the government has recognized that too. And it has come up with the new education policy 2022. And then we noticed, Asha ma'am noticed, Ramani ma'am noticed, that the new education policy, what it's asking us to do is already, to quite a great extent, is already being done in Jaipuria school. So we were very relieved. Whatever components were not included are now being included. New lesson plans are being carved out with the help of Shalini ma'am for middle school, which is going to be a big change in our education system in the middle school. We are hoping that they will all take off well, Shalini ma'am.
Ma'am, here I would like to add one thing.
Yes.
Shivda taught us,
Huh.
like what Roopsi had said, why we are integrating like teaching like lesson plans with physical education. He said that sometimes it happens that we feel the child is not picking up maths concepts. It's not because there is a problem in cognitive growth of the child. It's all because the child is sitting at one place throughout the day, and after one class, the other class happens and no physical activity is being done. So the mind becomes inactive. So that's the reason we've integrated like a lot of maths concept we are doing through physical activity.
Excellent. Physical is being integrated with the mental. Yeah, beautiful.
We always hope that PDM should come together to move towards
Yeah,
this
yeah.
psychic. So that's what ma'am also keeps saying, that we have all the values and the vital also. So that physical, mental and mental come together.
But do invite him again. I mean, we don't.
Ma'am,
let it-
it's been done. We've made Parul and Roopsi in charge of this, and they're already in contact with him.
Yeah.
He'll start like he's gone to, I think, Nainital.
Ah.
So he'll be coming after 12th April, so we'll begin with that.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And we'll make a new group now, ma'am,
Yeah, more teachers should be included, and we have to let this become like a wave inside our school, junior school. If we are just doing junior school, let it take over the minds of the entire junior school teachers, all of them.
So
Then-
now, ma'am, Parul and Roopsi, they are taking care
Yeah,
of that.
very
Now
good.
I've
But
passed on.
just keep getting after him and
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did contact him, so he said by after the 12th, 13th, he'll contact us back. If he doesn't, we'll call him back again.
Okay.
So,
wonderful. Now we come to spiritual education. Spiritual education, if it is hammered into a child, can put him off completely. And that is why spiritual education cannot be hammered into a child. Right? It is for this reason that in SethM.R.Jaipuria school, we are subtly weaving the spiritual component into the lesson plans of middle school for the time being. In the junior school, I'm sure Asha ma'am is adding to some extent, but we need to do a little more.
But with every lesson plan, whatever I knew, I've done it. Now I'll ask Shalini ma'am also to give her input.
Yes, we
So a
must.
lot of conscious transformation we've done, added in that.
Excellent.
Whatever
excellent.
we knew.
Excellent. So, our spiritual retreat, what is our spiritual retreat doing? It is exposing those children who are leaning towards spirituality, because it cannot be drummed into everybody. But those who are leaning towards spirituality, they have a quest, they have questions, they have a leaning, they want to move towards a higher plane, but they have no guidance. So the spiritual retreats are helping these children to move forward, get their answers, feel a little more satisfied, then go to the next rung. And that is why the spiritual retreat was started in 2018. And I think it's gaining a lot of ground in the students. Children of classes 3 and 4, ma'am please allow me, please allow me. कुछ तो उनके अंदर होगी ना, एक भूख, एक प्यास ईश्वर के लिए. That is why they want to join it. So we come to our topic of the day, which is vital education. Of all education, all these physical, vital, mental, psychic, the vital education is the most important. It will lead towards the psychic education if it is handled properly. And the vital education is the most indispensable and most neglected. Most indispensable and most neglected. Most educational institutions do not even bring up this topic. They do not even think about this topic because they are so busy giving mental education, right? So, to move ahead in vital education, first of all, we must understand what is the vital.
So the way I understand is
Yeah.
that vital is the life force.
Very good.
And it is in the torso region.
Very good. It is in this region.
This region.
Yeah.
And this is where all our emotions, passions, desires, every kind of emotion, positive
And
not
negative.
so positive, all emotions, they reside there. So that is the vital, which is our life force. But there are two kinds of life forces, as we said. There's negative, there's positive.
Yeah.
And I think vital education should be, I've waited to hear from you, should be development of the positive, and through that, how to nullify the negative.
No nullifying the negative, because the negative is also a force.
Yes.
It has to be transformed.
Oh, that gets transformed. Into
That gets transformed. The same force cannot be suppressed. When the vital education is done by suppressing, ये नहीं करना है, control करो. Like some of our children were doing, getting up at 3 in the morning, not eating cereal for many days. That is suppression, it's coercion, in which the life force gets bugged. And when it gets bugged, it can just throw out like a volcano. That's not the right method.
it's the transformation.
The right method is to transform.
And to enhance
Come to a balance, instead of coercion, come to a balance and then move towards the higher.
Purification and mastery over the
Purification and mastery. Absolutely.
So I know a little bit.
You know a little bit. Very good. So, as Shalini ma'am said, what is the vital in us? The vital in us is that which holds power, energy, enthusiasm, dynamism. All the power that we have, that strength that goes to the physical to move, that comes from the vital. The strength that goes to the mental to understand comes from where? Comes from the vital. Because the vital is that which holds the power, the energy, the enthusiasm, the dynamism. And the vital is also the center of emotions. Good, bad, ugly. And what happens is that because it has this inherent power and energy, because power वहीं से आता है, so because of this inherent power and energy, the vital becomes like a tyrant over the physical, a tyrant over the mental. कैसे होता है tyrant? Suppose a child has learned from his teacher or some guru that you must get up at 3 and meditate. You have to do it. Body of a child, body of anybody needs sleep. Now the vital being will, like a tyrant, make the body get up at 3 and make the body meditate, make the body have less sleep, make the body miss food. I will not have, my teacher doesn't have cereal for many, many days. I also will have no cereal for many, many days. But this body of a child needs all that nutrition to be able to play and enjoy and grow. But all that is gone. So the vital is like a tyrant. It can suppress the physical, it can suppress the mental. Right? Now the mental is saying, very simple example. The mental is that which says this is right and this is wrong. So the mental says, no, this is not good, you should not be going for 2 movies back to back when you have an exam 2 days later. It's a board exam. The mental is saying that to the child. But the vital desire is so strong. क्या है? रात भर जग के पढ़ लूँगा. अभी तो let me go and see the movie. अभी तो let me go and have an ice cream even if I have a cough. So that is the power of the vital over the mental and the power of the vital over the physical. So what we have to learn today is how can this vital be controlled? How can this vital be channelized? Because energy wahi hai. It has to be channelized into something higher.
In vital role of sense organs.
Yes, absolutely right. Refinement of the senses. We will be talking about that. Now, there are 2 ideas that the West has propagated and the whole world has picked them up. And these 2 ideas have made this domination of the vital over the mental and physical much more sovereign, much more stronger. What are these 2 ideas? First one is that the aim of life is to be happy. हम इसमें खुश हैं. And happiness is the aim of my life. This is what the West has propagated, and unfortunately the world has listened to this propagation. That the aim of life is to be happy. We'll talk about this point. The second point, which is even more dangerous, this idea of the West, is that I have come with an inherent, everyone has come with an inherent nature, and that nature can't change. I mean, unfortunately, even Swami Vivekananda said, but it has been misunderstood. He didn't mean it this way. He said, the nature of man is like a dog's curly tail, and however much you want to straighten it, it will again go back to its curl. But he meant that for those ignorant people who don't believe in changing, who don't want to change. Now let us look at the first concept which has actually brought so much degradation to human life in the world, and that is the aim of life is to be happy. This concept, the aim of life is to be happy, actually generates from a great profound truth. What is that profound truth? The profound truth is that this whole existence, this whole universe, the galaxies, the expanding galaxies, who has become that? The divine has become these galaxies. The divine has become our solar system. The divine has become Kanika, Vinay Pandey sir, Pramani ma'am. The divine has become all of us. What is the nature of the divine? If we want to describe the divine, our Indian literature has said that the divine can be described as Sat, Chit, Anand. We won't go into Sat and Chit for the time being. The nature of God is Anand, delight. Now, because the nature of God is Anand, so inherently inside us, the soul, there is the soul. The nature of our soul is Anand, delight. Now, this soul is searching for delight. हम सब के अंदर जो आत्मा है वो डिलाइट ढूंढ रही है, बिकॉज उसका नेचर डिलाइट है. जिसका जो नेचर है वो वही ढूंढता है. सोल इज लुकिंग फॉर आनंद, बट द सोल हैज़ टू टर्न टू whom? The soul has to turn to these instruments, the physical body, the vital being and the mental being, to find delight. अगर हमारे, if our physical being is not purified, the instrument is not purified, our vital emotions, our vital life force is not purified, our mental being is not purified, then it will turn the search of delight into search of pleasure, and it will only search for pleasure. The more we refine these instruments, the more we refine these instruments, the more these instruments will look at delight. They will look from pleasure, they will move to happiness. Then these instruments will say, no, 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 this is only happiness, let me look for joy. Then they'll say, no, 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 this is not enough, let me look for delight. And then these instruments of ours will become in sync with the soul. What is the soul looking for? Delight, ananda, of the highest, of being itself, of noticing itself, of feeling one with itself. But the soul has to look at the instruments to find that delight. And the instruments are not pure, so they are looking for pleasure. As these instruments, our physical being, our vital being, our mental being become purer and purer, they rise from pleasure to the higher and higher levels. Right? Understood? So, what started off as a seeking for delight, for God, a seeking for God, a seeking for Ananda, turned into a seeking of life which is dipped in pleasure, desire, aggression, ego. That's what it has moved into. This brings us to a very important topic, a topic over which schools do not talk to the students. And that topic is aim of life. What should be the aim of life? Unfortunately, children are growing up world over that the aim of life is to progress, but what is progress understood as? If money, my salary becomes higher, then it becomes higher. My home, if it is this big, it becomes bigger. If I'm on a scooter, I want a car. And I'm progressing. This is progress as understood by everybody in the world. But in Jaipuria school, in SethM.R.Jaipuria school, our teachers must be able to have it first clear in their head. What is the meaning of progress and what is the real aim of life? Progress in our school should be clearly defined as a progress from our lower nature to our higher nature. In the Gita, we have been told, Sri Krishna says himself that I have two natures. He says, I am apara prakriti, and I am para prakriti. Both of them I am. And he says very clearly, ye jo jua hai na, that people are gambling, that's me only. Because there is nothing but him. But वो उनकी विकृति होनी उन्होंने allow कर दी. He allowed himself to become other than himself. Right? So what is progress? Progress is, a child can define that he is progressing when he can himself consciously look at himself and say, yes, I have progressed from my lower nature to my higher nature. Right? And what is the goal of life? What is the real aim of life? The real goal of life is not to secure personal happiness. It is not to secure personal happiness, but to awaken ourselves gradually towards the divine consciousness. We have to awaken ourselves towards the divine consciousness. And the progressive goal of life kya hai? Because there is one aim of life, that I have to move towards the divine consciousness. I have to become the divine consciousness. But what is the progressive goal of life? Because there has to be one goal of life which I slowly and steadily progress towards. And the progressive goal of life is to become purified instruments of God, through whom God's will and only God's will is manifesting itself through. Such the instruments should become. And that is why the progress of the physical body is important, that it becomes a perfect instrument. If God wants a certain work to be done by this body, the body should be ready to become a willing servitor. Yes, God, I can do it. I can work for 24 hours if that is thy will. This vital being, it should be developed in such a manner, and we'll talk about it, how to develop it. The vital being, this life force that you talked about, should become so pure that it is able to look at its own faults and look at them dispassionately and say, this I'm going to change. And we teachers have to tell our students, you have the strength. You have the strength to be able to, as Sri Aurobindo said, take desire out from its bleeding roots. It will bleed. When we let go of a negative tendency in us, that negative tendency, when it's pulled out, it will bleed. It will cause us pain, but let it bleed. But you can control, you can change and transform your character, right? So ईश्वर का संकल्प हमारे द्वारा हर क्षण कार्यान्वित हो. What are we doing at present? What I will, I am doing. But if we take out those 2 seconds before any class that you're doing, before you're taking your lunch or your dinner, or you're talking to a student, or even getting angry on a student, just one moment, step back and offer it and say, let thy will be done. ईश्वर का विल है कुछ और हम लगे हुए अपनी विल में. ईश्वर का संकल्प हर क्षण, एट एवरी मोमेंट, हमारे द्वारा, इस शरीर के द्वारा, इस वाइटल के द्वारा, इस मेंटल के द्वारा कार्यान्वित हो. That is the goal of life. The divine will alone manifests itself through our purified instruments, through our physical body, through our vital being, through our mental being. That is the aim of life for us. That the divine will and the divine will alone manifests itself through us, not my will, the divine's will, right? And for this, and of this, our students must be made aware of. And this will happen only when you will start believing in it. Ki this is it. Awaken ourselves to the divine consciousness. Progressive goal of life, to become purified instruments through whom God's will alone manifests itself spontaneously. Now, this is looking after only the first problem, that the aim of life is to be happy. That was one concept of the West, which we have broken down. Now the second concept of the West kya tha? That we cannot change our nature. Now let's talk about that. Okay? This idea that we cannot change our nature is absolutely faulty, baseless. And this may be true, but only for the ordinary natured persons. Only for the ordinary person, this may be true because they are dominated by the force of their character. And all through their life, they prefer to remain dominated by their character. And they do not want to transform themselves. For them, it is true. But in reality, the transformation of our character is the starting point of vital education. This can be done by a clear-sighted discipline and perseverance. So the teachers must be aware, what is that discipline that we can follow by which I can transform myself. Once you become clear and you start transforming yourself, when you speak to the students, it will come from experience. It will not be just a mental idea. Because you have done it in yourself, you have changed, transformed your own character in certain manners, then when you speak to the students, it will happen spontaneously in the student. Right? Remember that story about a guru who, a mother came with a child and said, "Ye chini bahut khata hai. He eats too much sugar, too much dessert. Can you tell him to stop?" And the guru said, "Come back after 15 days. And in 15 days, the guru himself stopped, controlled, balanced out the sugar, the dessert that he was having. And then when he said to the student, the child immediately stopped. He started balancing the dessert that he was having. Why? Because the guru had reached the point where he was communicating from his soul. It was not a mental thought. दिमाग में हमको मालूम है हमने दूसरे को pass on कर दिया. It doesn't work. But when it is spoken from the soul to the soul of the child, it has an instant effect. So that is what we teachers have to do. Right? So clear-sighted discipline, which we'll talk about, and we have to teach the children perseverance. जिस चीज़ को लिया है, that you will go on and on and on till you achieve it, right? It is with this aim that SethM.R.Jaipuria School has been named as the School of Conscious Transformation. We will transform, but we will transform consciously. We will become aware of what needs to be transformed. We will work on it consciously and we will transform it. So transformation is possible. And what is the goal of the school? The goal of the school is to make our students aware of the strength within them. Make them aware of the strength within them which can enable them to transform consciously. Right? So, of course, in this the first thing that has to be done is the power of observation. The child must learn how to observe himself. And vital education must begin as early as possible. The earlier we begin, Asha ma'am, Mitali ma'am, Joyita ma'am, Kanika ma'am, Aradhana ma'am, the earlier we do start working on vital education, the more and more effective it will become. Right? Generally children, why only children? Even we are unaware of our own desires. We are unaware of our own impulses. We are unaware and we are propelled unconsciously towards the fulfillment of our desires, the fulfillment of our impulses. We are not aware कि this is my desire that is propelling me to ये चाहिए, ये चाहिए, ये चाहिए, ये करना है, ये होना चाहिए, ये तो होना ही है. We are not aware that it is my vital force which is forcing me to make this happen. But to become aware, we must start training the life force.
One thing I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
like you said it should begin as early as possible. So Shweta told us like why it should begin as early as possible, because later our mental faculties they become very active
हाँ,
and lot of logic and reasoning they start doing. Then
हाँ,
they interfere with vital.
हाँ,
If we want to refine our vital,
Yes.
then that logic and reason that comes as a hindrance on the way.
absolutely true. Absolutely right. What happens? The mental being starts getting crystallized. And when it becomes very crystallized, it's not ready to listen. The vital being becomes crystallized. And don't we realize that when we have anger within us, we just shoot off. That time we don't realize. We shoot off. It becomes like a impulsion and like an instinct. Like if on a dog's curly tail you step on his tail and he will bite you. It's an impulse. Anger is an impulse. But if I become conscious, then we start working on it. And most of all, when we work on these things, we need help from the force. And we have to connect to the force and say, देखो, मैं देख रही हूँ मेरे अंदर ये प्रॉब्लम है. मैं अपने आप नहीं कर सकती हूँ. I need your help. And you can't imagine how the divine comes forward to help us transform our character, because that is what the divine wants us to do.
So ma'am, at this point, is it so like Shraddha said, mind, mental being starts giving lot of reasons. So if we feel angry at somebody, so our mind starts giving the reason, starts justifying my actions. And then we justify our actions and we never try to refine that, transform it.
So for this, Sri Aurobindo has spoken very clearly. He has said, he has explained us the difference between an error and sin. Error and sin. I've made a mistake. By mistake, a mistake has been made. It's a mistake. When we justify and we say this was done because that person is wrong, and when we justify that mistake, it becomes a sin. पाप कब बनता है? जब वो justify करता है हमारा mind. And our mind is very clever. Ego is very clever. It just seeps in and justifies an action. That justification turns an error into a sin. This is the explanation given by Sri Aurobindo.
So a lot of work had to be done, and so I got up early in the morning and I said I must finish that. But in between, my mom called and they were disturbed about something. I really didn't have the energy, the time, I was tired. I didn't want to go. And then I had to do my meditation, a lot of stuff that I have kept for the day. And as a result, I just sat down because I was shaking. I didn't know what to do. And suddenly there was a voice telling me, meditation, your parents need you, is your meditation. This is not meditation. What are you doing to your body? What are you achieving through this? Why are you pushing it? It has its limits. It needs rest. It needs happiness. It needs... I completely relaxed. I was sharing that with Asha. I said, I just sat for 10 minutes, breathing, and I went to my parents' place. I did a lot of work there after having solved their problem. And I could achieve everything, and I was so silent. So is that the voice? Because, I don't know, I just was slightly guilty. I couldn't do my 1 hour meditation, which I do. But should I push myself to do it? Should I not push myself to do it? I don't know.
So there cannot be a one size fits all answer. The answer always is very subjective. It comes to everybody differently. It came to you at that moment. That your meditation is going to your parents is also meditation. And you listen to it and you moved ahead. But we should not start believing that all the time I'm being able to hear the divine's voice. Because then we can get into quite a lower spiral.
Or maybe sometime we, in the back of mind, this was already going on. Like I should go to my parents' place.
So
somewhere I was thinking.
The higher voice inside
yeah.
was saying ki jana chahiye.
And automatically we start feeling innate. This is also.
But the mind is saying, no, we have to finish my work.
Yeah.
So then we are able to find our own balances.
So it could be the mental being as well,
Yeah.
who's guiding you. It can be anything. But then what matters is, again, coming to what matters is your satisfaction at that point of time. Because when you are satisfied doing this, supposing she had been meditating, right? Just a hypothetical situation. Supposing she continued to meditate for that 1 hour and didn't go there, and maybe when she went there, things became even worse than what they were. So here comes a sense of responsibility also, but what I'm trying to say is, and so in that case, after meditation, will she be satisfied?
No.
Will she feel she's achieved something? Maybe the mental being is guiding her after 10 minutes that look, you wind up from here and go there, and after that she's more satisfied.
Yeah.
She's more satisfied, she's more at peace with ourselves, because on the other hand, we always say connect with your inner self. Right? When we are connecting with our inner self, and that is guiding us to do something, the outer being and inner being, in the second case, are in harmony. In the first case, they are not in harmony.
Not in harmony. Yes.
So maybe your meditation for 10 minutes or just being with you for 10 minutes took you in that direction that you became in harmony with your outer being and inner being. So that is why you got so much energy that you went there and you worked over there and you were satisfied with it.
Perfect.
So then that is not happiness, that is real delight in that.
Not delight, let's not use the term delight.
Some kind of
And to be in harmony is better than just happiness.
Yeah.
So could that one checklist be that if I'm doing something and if it is not harming anyone, it is only going to bring joy, momentary joy in somebody's life, I think, and if I'm able to keep away everything that I wanted to do for that one thing, is that a checklist?
Not really. Not really. You can't always say ki if it's not harming anybody, then it is what God wants me to do. Because the aim of life is to do what God wants me to do. And to reach that point where we know what God wants me to do. Or we don't know, but we have become such instruments that God is using us for His purpose. Where you don't calculate anymore. That is the aim of life. And we can't bring down that aim of life to, as long as I'm not harming anybody, then this is the right action. No, that's not a checklist enough. Yeah. And then as long as I'm doing good for others. What happens in this we must study this topic some other day, this doing good for others. This has been taken to another level which does not serve the purpose of aim of life. Many people have gone into, I'm serving others, the underserved. So I'm doing that work that God wants me to do. God wants us to serve others, God wants us to serve the underserved, but more than that, much more than that, God wants us to become instruments through whom His will is being done, not only serving others. That serving others sometimes becomes the pinnacle of our life. बस ये कर दिया ना मैंने तो कितनों का फ़ायदा किया है. I have done my bit. No, I have not done my bit. If I have not become that instrument through whom God's will is being done, serving the underserved may be one part of God's will for us, but it cannot be the be-all of God's work for us.
So how do you come to know what is the God's will?
How do you come to know what is God's will? This is the biggest tapasya of our life, because this is the real aim of life. To become instruments through whom God's will and God's will alone is being done. That is the aim of life. And the progressive aim of life is to purify these instruments, purify our vital being, which we'll talk about. We have still not seen what has to be done to purify the vital being, to make our physical being healthy and strong and agile and supple and everything, to work on our mental being. Someday we'll talk about mental education also, right? Like today we'll talk about vital, we'll also one day talk about mental education. Mental education is not just gaining information. What we teach in school, science, geography, history, all this is information. To a certain extent you can call it that some bit of knowledge maybe. But real mental education teaches a child to become silent. Training the mind to become silent. If we are able to reach certain moments, some moments of silence, then we are able to hear the Divine's will, which is like Kirit uncle always used to give the example that only when there is a placid pool, placid, there is no movement in the pool, there is no filth, there is no muck in the pool, there is clarity in the pool and it's placid, then the light of the stars drops perfectly on the pool and the pool becomes illuminated by the light of the stars. Similarly, if our mind becomes more and more and more, it's able to achieve silence, then what is the Divine's will for me just falls into the mind and the mind is able to absorb it. This is tapasya. It's a long tapasya. It cannot be done in a day or two, but the goal has to be clear. Absolute clarity of vision. The aim of my life is to discover God's will and to become such an instrument through whom God's will is being enacted. And they are all supple. The mental, vital, physical, all have become flexible. Flexible only to the Divine's will.
Become perfect instruments of the Divine through which the Divine will is working, then there is no ego in us. Then this thing that I am doing something will disappear.
Because where will be the ego? Because one has become one with the Divine.
Yeah. So then that is where we become the perfect instruments.
Yes.
So that ego is not there anymore.
Ego will dissolve in the beginning stages. It will start dissolving. And as you progress in your sadhana, the ego will start becoming one with the Divine. There will be no separate. The Divine and me are not separate anymore.
So it won't be like I am doing that thing of
How can that I come?
That thing will disappear.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
It's not possible that is. There will be no I, because the I and the Divine are one. They'll become one.
So when we are offering, that means I am not doing that work.
Yes, the offering is a very good, very, very good beginning. Very good beginning.
Whatever we are planning, for example, we have planned something. But before doing execution, we have offered
it.
This is my planning, but it has to be done through.
Ma'am, is it so offering means, is it so when we offer to God, like we are expecting the results from God?
No, when we offer, we are not asking for results.
But we are offering this to you. It means that you make it happen or...
No. What one offers is the effort that one is doing. What one offers is the desire that one has. And the final prayer in the offering must always be, let thy will be done. Let your will be done. Today I am going to talk to, say, Promini ma'am. And I want that this should start happening in the school. This. Now I talk to God and say, God, I really want this to happen in the school. So I offer this to you. I'm going to talk to Promni ma'am. I offer this. Whatever I'm going to speak to Promni ma'am, may your words come through me. May you speak through me. So, oh God, today I will talk to Promni ma'am and put before her this desire of mine that this should happen in school. You speak through me, God. And oh Lord, if it is thy will, let it happen. If it is not thy will, let it not happen. है ना? Similarly, suppose we are fighting a horrific battle on which depends my residence, my place of residence. There's a big battle in the court with some family member regarding this home in which I'm living. And before going to the court, before briefing the lawyers about it, my offering should be, oh Lord, today I will brief the lawyers. I really have a desire that I am able to stay in my place of residence, that it is not taken away from me. This is my desire, but this desire I offer to thee. I offer to thee whatever I will brief my lawyers. But my final prayer is, let thy will be done, not mine. That is a real offering.
I offer this
Things. One is a question and one is like for better understanding of this. So first this part, when you offer and you offer it to him and you've spoken to him, then after that whatever comes, whatever be the result,
Beautiful.
accept it.
Beautifully said. This should have been finished this way. That हमने ये offer कर दिया, let thy will be done. Now that in the court I lost the battle, then to be able to accept it as God's will. Not only that, I have won the battle, suppose. Then not to have the ego, I have won. Tom-tomming to people, calling them up, मैं जीत गई. No, I haven't won. It was the divine's will. Because of that divine's will, I have won. Or it is the divine's will that I don't. So I have lost. It is all right. You're right.
Only when you accept it, then you refine your vital.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. It should have been completed with this statement.
Now one question
Yeah.
that we were discussing, well, this is not harming anyone. Whatever I am doing is not harming anyone. So it's okay. But sometimes when we work only with this feeling, I'm not doing anything to harm anyone.
I'm
not
harming
harming
myself.
anyone.
I'm harming, maybe harming myself.
Maybe harming myself. And second thing, am I really purifying my vital? I may be becoming lazy because of that.
Yeah.
I may not be taking decisions. I may not be deliberating enough.
Yeah.
And I may be leaving things aside.
Yeah.
So it can pull down your vital rather than.
Yeah. This can never be taken as a yardstick. That if I'm not harming anyone, then it's the divine's will. Not at all. It's a very, maybe to begin with. But none of you are at that stage where you're just beginning on this path.
The leaders can't be like that.
So what I'm saying is that to have a little checklist, because it's not always that when you are saying that I'm not harming anyone, it is once in a while when you are in a situation and you just don't know, because you need to do something for yourself and then you need to do something for the others. Right? Like yesterday, there was me. I would have loved to sit and meditate. I had so many pieces of work to do, to think about. I needed the silence of my house. It was very important because the next 15 days work depended on yesterday's work with all the children, the thousands of children I'm going to interact with. That was a big piece of work for me. Another big piece of work was reality. My parents, I'm the only one who can take care of them. Now, there was a tussle. Then the checklist. Should I come first or should my parents come first? Then one does need a little something to say, because if I did go there, I didn't know whether I would have been able to achieve anything. But the fact that I put my parents above my desire, that is also my desire, this is also my desire. But I put some other desire over another desire. That's when I feel I put my desire here, but I took care of something that for me was important at that moment. And then God's will, that everything happened.
Very nice.
Everything happened. I could achieve
so
every
when we are able
possible
to
thing.
make way for others, then our work
Automatic. I
gets
saw
done.
that happen.
Yeah.
And one more thing about ego we were discussing. So I remember the spiritual retreat, A child asked Shraddhaluji about ego, and we want to overcome ego, and he laughed. And I think he looked at you, he says, ego ko itna kharab nahi samjho. Ego is there for a reason. So what did he mean? I was very confused.
Let me explain. Sri Aurobindo has said, ego is the helper, ego is the bar. It's in his thoughts and aphorisms. Ego is the helper, ego is the bar. Now in the beginning, the ego is very important. In the beginning, like a child in class 1, 2, he needs to know I am, who am I? So in that, the ego is necessary. Main kaun hu? That ego is important in the beginning to formulate a personality, right? But slowly and steadily, that ego, when that person starts moving towards the divine unity, towards the divine being, the divine consciousness, then that ego starts melting into the divine. And then that ego can become a bar. So the ego is important in the beginning to be able to form a personality. कि मैं कौन हूँ, मालूम होगा तब तो मैं को change करूँगी. If I don't know who I am, what are my problems, how will I transform them? So for that, ego is important in the beginning. But as we start moving towards the divine consciousness, that ego starts melting and must melt. Right? Now let us come to the real pith of today's talk. And that is, what do we do to train our vital? How do we train our vital? We said that vital education must begin as early as possible so that the children become aware of their desires and impulses and their nature. Now, how do we train the life force? So, we must train this life. For training this life force, this vital force, there are 3 things that are most important, 3 directions that the life force must take. First of all, the life force must be able to discover its real function. What is my job on earth? I must be able to know that. If I don't know that, then I am lost in the job that I have as present. I have the job that, well, I am the founder of the school, so I have to run the school, and I have to do this and I have to do that. But what's my real job? That can't be my real job. As a human being, what is my real job? And that is to discover that this Anjali, this human being, has to become the servant of the higher principles, has to become a servant of the divine, has to become an instrument of God. That is my real job. And the school has come to me as an opportunity to learn this and to implement this. I do not want to become a servant of my own desires and impulses. So the first thing is to discover my real function. And if this is understood by teachers, implemented by you heads of the school, then when you pass it on to the students, they will start understanding and discovering their real function in life. Has everybody understood the first? To discover our real function in life is to become an agent of God, an instrument of God through whom His work is done. That is why even the idea of moksha, I don't understand. My aim, if it is moksha, that as soon as possible I am not born again and again in this world. How selfish can that be? I would like to be born again and again and again and again so that I am used by Him. He uses me for His purpose. Even if I have to go through all the difficulties of being born again, learning again, going through the difficulties of life, but I want to be used as your instrument. Use me as your elf. First, what is the second thing that has to be done for training the life force? We have to make this life force subtle. Gross हो गई है ना, उसको subtle बनाना है. We have to make this life force sublime. We have to make this life force sensitive. We will discuss later on what do we do to make this happen. But first we have to understand the 3 directions. First direction, that we have to discover that our real function in life is to become an instrument of the higher principle of God Himself. Second, we have to make our life force subtle, sublime, and sensitive. And thirdly, we have to become aware, we have to become observant of our contradiction in our character. We have to become observant of my own being, my nature. Only then will I be able to transform it, ना? पेरेंट बोल रहा है तुम्हारे अंदर बहुत ग्रीड है, बहुत डिज़ायर है, बहुत ही ज़्यादा तुमको खाने के पीछे पगला लट्टू रहते हो, बट हमको तो नहीं दिख रहा है, नहीं दिखेगा तो आई कांट चेंज इट. इट इज़ ओनली व्हेन आई एम एबल टू ऑब्जर्व माई सेल्फ that I will be able to transform. So these are the 3 directions that we have to understand. Now, for achieving these difficult goals, what can we do to actually give ourselves vital education and make ourselves subtle, make ourselves sublime, make ourselves sensitive? How can we discover our real function? How? What should we do? Now we come to these 7 points. And all that I am saying today, none of these words are mine. They are all from the mother. The mother has spoken on the education of the vital. And then Kirit Joshi ji has explained it. You must go to Incarnate Word and hear him. It's so easy now. So for achieving these difficult goals, the following must be done for our students at an early age. Right? First point. The first point is that the power of senses must be developed. And this can be done best in playgroup, LKG, UKG, class 1. And in these classes, the children's senses can still be formed, developed, right? If our ancients had the power of Trikal Drishti, वो यहाँ बैठे बैठे आगे का फ्यूचर बता सकते थे, पास देख सकते थे, तो उनके अंदर भी तो they had the same body, the same capacities. We have the same capacities, but we have not been trained to be able to refine our senses, our sense of sight. There are exercises that are done in Pondicherry ashram. And Mitali would be knowing, I think Kanika ma'am will be knowing, Aradhna ma'am will be knowing, Roopsi Joyita will be knowing, that these exercises are when a child is very small, you make him close his eyes and make him see. See with closed eyes, they will be able to see. The vision is there. Hearing, when a child is sitting, make them close their eyes and you ring the bell from that end, sometimes ring the bell from this end, sometimes ring from the back. Let the child be able to decipher. Even they are able to hear sounds that are coming from outside the building. They are able to hear. But only when you develop the power of silence in the children at these young ages. To try to do this in middle school would be very tough. But in junior school it is possible. And it must be done in Jaipuria school.
We are doing plenty of such exercises, like children are sitting in the room, we go to different corners, and sometimes we are clapping from the left corner, the right.
Very
children
good.
identify with
Yes.
different sounds, dropping a coin, horn of the bus, the
Very nice.
sound of the pressure cooker.
Excellent.
So children identify all those sounds.
Very nice. So you can even tell them that now you children close your eyes, see the time, tell them the time. And tell them close your eyes and see what your mummy is doing just now. They are sitting in school. But tell them to see what the mother is doing at home. And then when they go back home, they can verify. In the beginning, they will do guesswork. But when they are made to do it again and again and again and again, this inner sight will be developed. If it was there in the rishis, I am asking why is it not there in us? We have the same body, the same capacities.
We tried transforming them to like they were feeling very warm the other day. So we just told them close your eyes and let's travel, go to some place where there's snow. And after some time it was like they said, ma'am, it is cold. You know.
How beautiful, Aradhna ma'am, beautiful.
So,
When we were young, it's too hot. This is close your eyes. Think you are there. And we would all close our eyes. It was snowing.
Excellent. Very good. That's why I'm saying that people are talking about Jaipuria school. It's because of all these things that are being done in junior school. Very good. Excellent. Keep finding out, keep going on the internet, keep finding out from Pondicherry, whoever you know, junior school, and bring in more of all this. Right?
Whenever our virtual tours really took off, because children actually imagined that they were in those places and they were, they've not been out, and in COVID they were at home, but with that make believe that we are touring, we are going. So we were sitting
Excellent.
with their sunglasses and a fake passport and suitcase, everything.
Excellent. Excellent work. So another thing that we have to do, because senses को भोजन मिलता है, हम सोचते हैं कि we think that we are only eating what food we are eating, but whatever the eyes are watching, whatever sounds we are hearing, whatever smells we are smelling, whatever we are touching, all that is food for the body. And parents must be, you must speak to the parents about grossness, coarseness and subtlety, refinement. And all that the children hear, they must hear refined sounds. They should hear classical music, they should hear soft good music. If they're hearing that electronic music, what's going to happen to their nerves, right? Similarly, all the video games that children are playing. If in young classes, your playgroup, LKG, UKG, the parents are made aware that do not expose your children to the video games, there is so much violence. All that violence is getting embedded into their cells. And then later on when they become violent, we don't like it. But as parents, if I'm not conscious in the beginning, what's going to happen? What kind of movies do we show? What kind of behavior the parents have at home? If they're shouting at each other, what are the children learning? It's all getting programmed into their computer. So the parent education through the teachers is very important, especially at this level. Because at this level, children listen. Right? So we must expose, and also what should we do? We must expose our students and our parents to higher tastes, refined music. Give them, send them by WhatsApp some good music. Tell them of the activity that before lunch, sit down and close your eyes and pray. Before dinner, do this. Sit down across the table and talk of the higher values. The parents have to be educated. They are also our students in a manner. And if you are able to refine the parents, these students will get double dose of refinement from the school as well as from the parents, right? So this is about the power of senses, the development of the senses. Now secondly, what do we have to do? And whatever we are saying for the students, we have to do for ourselves also. Secondly, we must make our students observant of their own desires, their passions, their ambitions, their lusts. And this has to be done not only in pre-primary, primary, but also in junior, also in middle school, and all the way till the senior school. Making the children aware. If you become aware of a certain anomaly in a nature of a child, don't tell the child in front of the whole class. Take him separately. Make him aware कि देखो, you have this problem in your nature. And let us both work together to refine it. And when the teacher is compassionate, not rude and mean to the student, criticizing the child, but in a very gentle fashion, let's both of us try to work towards improving it. Or if a teacher has changed something in themselves, taking that child aside and saying, you know, I had this problem. This problem that you have, I also had this problem. But you know how I worked on it? And then the child understands, oh, the teacher is so open. He's saying he also had the same problem. And how did he work on it? And he is going to help me work on it. So to make a child observant of his own character, his impulsions, his desires, and then helping him to transform, because transformation of character is a possibility, right? And it is in lieu of this that we started the project in class 8. personal transformation project. It is only for this that a child understands. He first of all observes what he wants to change, then he is given time to work upon that, to bring about that change, and then he is putting forth a presentation. He shows, look, I found this problem in myself, this is what I did, I have taken the whole roadmap, made a proper PPT of it, and I can present it without any shame that I have been able to change this in myself. Right? So the first thing was development of the power of senses, exposing the senses to refined, cultural, aesthetic. What are we doing for the school? We are trying to make it more and more beautiful. Why? That wherever the child turns his eye, what he sees is only beauty, aesthetics, whether it's lots of flowers or it's beautiful paintings. In whichever way possible, the child must see refinement and aesthetics around him. Second is teaching the child to observe himself. Observe and then helping him to transform himself. And whatever, as I said, you're telling the children to do, we as leaders must do ourselves as well.
And refined literature also.
Refined literature.
So we've started in junior school since from the last year. Old ancient stories. So we've started those stories. Our teachers, class teachers also tell the children those stories, and even Hindi teachers are also. We made a bank of it.
Excellent.
So I've told teachers every day you tell them a story. Maybe you will not be able to finish it, but tell them we'll finish it tomorrow so that the curiosity remains there with the children. So we are exposing.
Very important. Chitwan's books are also would be a very good help in your storytelling. The one that she's written on Guru Nanak, Buddha and Mahavir. So if those stories can be used in our school, in our storytelling sessions, they're short and very sweet. Yeah? Because to make them aware of these great personalities, it's very important. Many other books are now coming out also. Yeah? So this was the second, observing ourselves and transforming. Third is a very important point. The third point is that we must continuously instill in our students the will towards progress. Instill in our students and instill in ourselves the will towards progress and perfection. At this point, it is very important to understand what is progress. I've talked about it earlier. I'm going to repeat myself. Progress is not that my salary has gone from A to A plus, or my home has become from 1,000 square feet to 1,500 square feet, or now I had an ambassador, now I have a Mercedes. That is not progress. That is a help in our lifestyle, which is good, important. But real progress is when my nature moves from its lower version to its own higher version. And what, in the words of Sri Krishna in the Gita, from apara prakriti, when we start moving towards para prakriti, then that is real progress. And that progress can be measured. It is not कि ये progress measure नहीं हो सकती. We will be the persons who can actually measure our own progress. We don't need an outside validation that somebody has validated, हाँ आपका nature बदल रहा है. We don't need validation. We need validation from our own higher self. Have I changed? Yes? So the third point was progress, a will to progress, and to understand what is progress clearly. And this when it is done in junior school. Clearly children are explained what is progress. Clearly, in clear terms, it's part of your lesson plans. What is progress? How can I measure that I am progressing? Who can measure that I am progressing? Only I can measure my own progress. Nobody else can. There is nothing like self-discipline. Discipline which is enforced from top can never be discipline, because we will come back to doing what we want to do. But when I am judging my own progress, then I cannot be false to myself. Right? This was the third. Now the fourth. The fourth is a sense of dignity and self-respect. which every child must have for themselves. Because there are some children who are mentally or vitally weak, and there are other children who dominate upon them and make them lose their own dignity. It is very important to have a sense of dignity and self-respect. Very, very important.
How to do that sense of dignity and self-respect? How to cultivate this in the children?
How to cultivate it in the children. We know as teachers which child is being bullied around. The very fact that that child is allowing himself to be bullied means he does not have self-respect, means he does not have dignity of self. And that child has to be given talks by the teachers separately, to build his dignity, to show him what a great child he is or she. There is such a lot of goodness in you, and there is so much strength in you. And when we build up the dignity of that child, the self-respect of that child, then that child will blossom and will not allow himself to be bullied. There are children who are not very good to look at, or maybe a little much lesser than the others. Those children must be brought out in the class and given chance to speak up or chance in the drama. We should not be choosing only children who are beautiful to look at. What is there in beauty? Nothing. Those children who may lose their self-respect because they are not as beautifully groomed or as beautifully formed by God, they should be given more chances to come in front to build up their self-respect and dignity. Yeah, and there must be so many other ways.
We've done this with Nandini. When she came from mainstream, actually she was degraded there because of her color. And she was very much complex when we brought her back here. You've seen Nandini?
Yeah.
So we encouraged her so much. Now you see.
Now look what Nandini has become.
So,
She's an example for mainstream students also.
so like we really worked upon her.
Yeah.
Because she lost her confidence there.
Yeah.
But we had built up.
Yeah, but because with Nandini it was different because we knew she'd come from Nafsijan, and so there was a lot of focus. But I'm sure, teachers across in the so-called mainstream, they're talking about body shaming. I've seen teachers talk about body shaming and stuff. So that is impacting everyone, and I think particularly one odd person you can count on. But with Nafsijan is simpler because one child has come here and you can concentrate. But with 4,500 children.
Every teacher will be able to identify children who need their dignity to be raised, their self-respect to be raised. And we have multiple opportunities to do that. How easy it is for us to make that child stand up and bring out something beautiful that child has done and get some applaud for her, give her a chance to do something where she comes in the forefront.
Or discuss your own, because I remember I was body shamed for being dark. Not till my marriage, but when I got married, it was like, you're dark. So for the first time I looked at myself, I'm dark. I had never really looked at myself. I was okay. And then it took me years to come out of that.
Wow.
So I think as teachers, we've all felt body shamed. And especially women, we have felt body shamed at many times. So it's time as teachers, if we can discuss it with our children and say, I felt body shamed. I used to discuss it in open assembly that I've been body shamed for being dark. So my purpose in life was to look fair, as much fair as I can be. It took me a long time to come out and say, I am okay with who I am.
Yeah.
So let's talk it out with the children.
I was shamed forever for being my height. I didn't grow after class. Yeah. After the age of 10, I never grew. After the age of 9, I didn't grow. So if I didn't grow, I have not made a mistake. But I was ashamed of my height till I realized.
Others will make you.
Yeah. Thiggi, 4 footy. So it's okay. Now I realize that I am not this height. I am me. And that me is much larger than the height. And then you build your own dignity and your own self-respect. Then you don't need to wear heels. This is me. So,
I believe that here, if you notice an odd one in the class, there are things which all of us are doing in our own way, like Bushra. She was, talking of people being dark. Now you just see where Bushra has reached. So Shweta Jetli ma'am helped her out. Any teacher, who connects with the child, can pull the child out of it. But we have to bring the parent into fold. You are talking of being sure. It's very essential. There is a reason why I am saying this. I am very short, but I never felt odd. I went to on the stage when I was in class 3, stammered, forgot the speech, came back with a lot of confidence, didn't bother. Because at home, I really feel, when I look at parents these days, I feel my parents were really amazing parents. Because whenever we were treated as normal kids, and my sister is very tall. She's 5'4.5".
Wow.
So I had, this comparison, but they never compared. I mean, they just let us be. When somebody came home, well, there were assets which my parents would, tell about me. And if supposing we did something nice, my father would appreciate in front of parents. I feel that the parent has to be educated, that you have to be careful and cautious about it. But at the same time, talk to the child about it. That you are short, it's okay. It doesn't matter. There are so many good things. Look at your handwriting. Look at the way you think. What chance did you get in school today? Did you do something extra? What has your teacher said? These things parents should also ask the children. They should change their way of communicating with the child. If the parent and the teacher both change their way of communicating with the child, then it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. When we got engaged, I had a cousin. She told me, before my engagement, when my husband and her family had to come to, meet me the first time. So I had a cousin. She said, I brought these heels for you. You wear these heels. I fought with her. I said, I can't do this. My mother sat there. She said, do it if she's saying this. I said, you try to understand. I'm going to live with him. He better know what I am. I will wear what I am because I can't wear heels. So she allowed me. She had those guts. She said, it's okay. Let her do what she said. At least she'll go happily. She'll talk to them properly. Don't give it to her. And she allowed me to do that. So, we have to tell this to parents. They make you confident.
No, parents have to be taken in.
Have to be taken into fold. Talk to parents about it. And as ma'am is saying, as ma'am has said, or Asha ma'am has said, bring those children in front of the class.
Give them opportunity so they can flower and feel the dignity of that they actually should be having.
Basically making the child realize that you may not be good at one thing, but you have many other strengths which you can through that you can come in forefront.
And also, just saying one thing, you were born this way, no great shakes. When you're born fair and tall, everybody feels fair and tall is good. So you were born, what's your great thing in it? What have you done to transform yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
What is
you're transforming. What is in your hand? What did you do with that?
Yeah, beauty is skin deep. Height is also just bone deep, maybe.
Is sense of dignity and self-respect and will to progress related? Right?
The will to progress is part of each one of these points. There is a great progress if you are able to instill dignity into a child. Then the child is progressed. Because the child has let go of certain inhibitions that the child had.
Right.
Yeah?
Confidence.
Yeah, that's a progress.
We spoke about the children who are being bullied, we bring them out. But this also works with the ones who are bullying, because they also need to progress. So we make them see that which are your final points, that even they need to be helped.
Yeah, but they need to be told separately.
Definitely
Never
separate.
bring them down
Never.
in a class.
But even in them, we bring them out the same way that even you've got final points. You come with those things.
Yeah.
You can help. You don't, if he's been rude to a certain child, why don't you come and help him?
Yeah.
So even that way can work on.
Yes, of course. It has to be done on both ends. They have to be worked on more, maybe. Yeah. So this was our fourth point. Now the fifth point is a very important point. And that is the experience that you can develop your willpower. It must come through an experience. You know what is the willpower? The willpower is also like muscle. Just like we can develop our muscles, by doing strength training, what are we doing? We are developing the muscles. Similarly, the willpower is also like a muscle only. If we have a kind of a craving for something and we are able to develop our willpower, be able to control that craving, come to a balance, You have developed your willpower. You've experienced the developing of your willpower. And that experience the children must have. And it is for this reason that in junior school, I had suggested a certain few exercises. I don't know if they are not part of your lesson plan, please add them again. And I had said that they must be done through playgroup, LKG, UKG 1 and 2. And what was that? To learn self-control and patience. Give them sweets in the first. Give them sweets in the first period, and in the first time you tell them that this will be eaten in the last. So then the children are learning that, learning to be able to hold control, right?
So he said usually people keep them away from smoking. He tried an experiment in which he said, go ahead and smoke. Now everybody was very surprised. So he says, no, you go ahead and smoke. All he said was that everybody can change if you are able to observe. And it's all coming together when you're speaking. So when this lady went and smoked, he says, just observe. What does it taste like? What do you feel like? And what did you feel like when you were not having it? What did you feel like after you had it? So when she was asked, what did it taste like? She says, it tastes so bad. It has such a horrible smell, such a horrible taste. And then she said, then why do I do it? So the whole crux of that thesis of this psychologist was, observe if there's food, I love sweets if there and I have this craving. Just observe. My body is feeling restless. I just feel like moving. He says the moment you concentrate on it, slowly, steadily, you will overcome.
Yes, it's all about becoming more and more conscious. It's just about becoming more and more conscious, and this development of the willpower must become like an experience. It must become an experience. The child must experience that I use my willpower, I strengthen my willpower with my aspiration that I want to strengthen it. And I made a constant effort towards strengthening my willpower, and I was able to give this up. Or I was able to bring this to a balance. Whatever I was overdoing, I was able to bring a balance. It's not about suppressing. It's about bringing to a balance. A balance must come into it. And this experience that the children should have of developing their willpower, like you develop muscles, this must be done by our teachers. This experience must be part of the portfolio of the children. That they should grow up saying, in class 1, I was able to give this up because my teacher told me that I can do it. I can do it. I will do it. You can do it. That's why that's something that I wanted to add in the diary. But I don't know if you've not been able to do it. That every diary should have just these 5 points like a hand it's made. That I'm going to change this and this in this year. And have I been, no, but being in the diary and a teacher making sure that it's being spoken about. And the first point, give the first 2 months of your year. That 2 months I'm giving to achieve first goal. Then the teacher has to bring forth. Then the next 2 months, I'm going to bring this change in myself. This nature I'm going to change. When the teachers are making sure that they are talking about it, then the willpower will actually start becoming strong. And what I said was, the experience that I have strengthened my willpower is very important.
We are doing affirmations also, you told.
Yeah, yes.
Not only speaking but working also towards.
Yes. Very important to make positive affirmations. And teach them not to bring in negativity in their positive thoughts. Old people will say, I just keep praying to God that I am not dependent on my children. No, this is not a positive affirmation. This is a negative affirmation. Is it a positive affirmation or a negative affirmation?
I thought this was positive.
This is an absolutely negative, it's not an affirmation also. Because what has the universe heard? The universe has heard dependent on children. What is the positive affirmation? That may I be strong enough to support myself till my last breath. See the difference?
Yes.
So this kind of positive affirmations and getting the negativity out of their brains from childhood is a very important thing to do. Right? So this was regarding willpower, strengthening the willpower and using that hand. And the 5 things that we have to change within this year. First thing 2 months, then the teacher discusses, there is a circle time, the children sit together, they share their experiences. Some children have done nothing, some have really achieved. Then those who have achieved, when they talk about it, the other children will feel like next 2 months, I am also going to bring about this change in myself. This conscious transformation के लिए, this page of the diary is very important, right? So the next, 6th point, teachers have to become examples. In everything they have to give their example. मैंने ये किया बच्चों, मैंने ये transform अपने vital being में किया, ये possible है, and not just words but something that you have done, right? This point doesn't have to be elaborated upon. And the 7th and the last point, and a very important point which is being done fully in Jaipuria school, is an emphasis on fine arts, craft, music, dance, poetry. What does all this do? These elements of fine art, craft, music, dance and poetry, they actually stir the soul. The soul gets stirred and they make way for the soul to manifest itself through the outer instruments. Because when the soul will get stirred, how does the soul get stirred? You hear a beautiful raga. Instantly there's something inside you which is listening. It's not your mind which is listening. You realize हमारे अंदर कुछ move हो रहा है. It's the soul which gets stirred. And when the soul gets stirred, it starts manifesting itself through the outer instruments, and that is the aim of our vital education, right? That the soul or God, they're both synonymous, manifest themselves through the outer being, and the outer being has to be purified. The vital has to be purified, and we have discussed 7 ways by which the vital being can be purified. You want to go through those 7 points again? First point, senses have to be developed and refined and cultured by giving them aesthetic exposure to aesthetic things, aesthetic movies, aesthetic videos, aesthetic sounds, aesthetic look. Even the food that is placed before them should be placed very beautifully. That's the first. Second was observation of ourselves, observation of our desires, our passions, our ambitions, right? The third, the will to progress and to understand what is progress. The real progress is when we transform ourselves to our higher version. Yeah, from apara prakriti, let these words resound in our children from childhood. Apara prakriti से हमें परा प्रकृति की ओर जाना है. शुरू में they will be only words, but as they grow, these words will resound in them because para prakriti is their own soul. Soul बार बार सुनेगा para prakriti, then it will guide the child towards para prakriti, right? Next point, sense of dignity and self-respect has to be instilled in our students. We have discussed how this can be done. The next, willpower. The students must get an experience how to develop their willpower. They must experience that they have developed it. They've made it stronger, right? And the next, example set by the teachers themselves. And the next and the last, emphasis on fine art, poetry, music, dance, drama, poetry.
Can we have team games also in this?
Team games you can have in anything.
Through team games also, lot of harmony, the child learns harmony also, understands each other.
Yeah, of course. You can do team games for developing anything because teamwork will help them to have the spirit of bonhomie, the spirit of giving, the spirit of doing things together. So that would really help in anything. Even the building of willpower, if you want to add a team game in it. And you make them into teams. Each team has a head. The head is chosen by the team. And then they decide amongst themselves कि हमको ये change करना है. वो बोलता है हमको ये करना है, वो बोलता है हमको ये करना है. And then they have meetings in their lunch break.
Then they respect everybody's
Yeah. Yeah, and then they bring forth there's a time when you bring them all forward and they put before the whole class what the team has been able to achieve by way of transformation. This conscious transformation has to become our mantra. Our mantra has to be conscious transformation.
Maybe someday we can sit down together and decide that there are certain words we should not use with children. Like for example, it's very common, I've heard teachers say, he's a very good child. Let me call a good child. This is one. So, and secondly, appreciating the ones who do something too much should be avoided. This is something which Annam really said time and again. So maybe when somebody does something good in the class, instead of calling and saying everyone, okay, let's clap for him, we can always say, alright children, do you think we should appreciate someone who has done a nice painting? Let's find out who's done it. And make them a part of it. Like if some children have drawn a painting or someone has done something good, like for example, personal transformation project, we choose that. We segregate some of the children, so we can always tell them the whole class has seen, now let us choose some which can be
Very
recorded.
good idea.
Make
Let the
them,
children decide.
Let them decide so they understand. Then only they'll understand what refinement is. Then they develop their we don't injure their dignity and self-respect. Otherwise, when they go to senior school, what I notice is that they don't participate in many things because it is, so these things, I think, to bring them out of this, we have to be very careful right from the beginning. Small classes up to senior classes, we do appreciate them because eventually in Founders Day we appreciate the first 15 rankers in academic achievement. But before doing that, we talk to the entire class. We talk to the entire class and then do it.
But I think the moment you have competition and the moment you are giving ranks, you have ranked them.
Yeah, that's something.
It's so.
I feel in both the cases, the child will lose dignity.
Yes.
Because here teacher is choosing, here children are choosing. So like here, in both the cases the child will feel that I was not chosen, this child was chosen. Whether by the teacher or by the children, it's one of the same things.
No, there's a little bit of difference when it is their own peers who are choosing them.
Then they feel more rejected.
But they are also a part of
They
it.
feel rejected by their peers.
They
So
are a
that
part of
hurts more.
You can find a fine balance between the two because this is standard board. So I think it's a great thing that's happened in our school. Let us just end with a little silence, just 30 seconds. Gratitude to the divine for this beautiful interaction that I've had with the heads of the school, the pillars of the school. Thank you.